Explain Yourself has gone international. I'm still in Fort Lauderdale. Will's still in Arkansas. We're still just boring old where we are. But we're hitting you from Canada. We're hitting you from England. And the bookshop, Charles, where are we hitting you from?
We're in Oklahoma City.
All right.
It's right in the Paseo Arts District. So, just a hop away from Arkansas.
Okay,
Nice.
sweet. So we've got the middle of America all the way to England with a hop, skip, and a jump up north. So Explain Yourself. I think this is the most international we've had. We've had people from New Zealand and Australia, but I don't think we had anybody outside of the States with them. So I'm laying my marker that we're conquering the world with this episode. And you know what? Let's get to it. Will, how are you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was nice, and the house smelled great as Stace cooked the turkey for her, and Mike and Valerie and I ate our vegetarian thingy that is shaped like a loaf. So the house smelled really good.
Do you sniff the turkey? I will say
Absolutely.
though, the vegan turkey loaf is amazing. It's one of my favorite vegetarian dishes. So you aren't completely out to pasture on Thanksgiving. So
yeah.
Everybody else have a good start to your campaigns. I know not everybody, I'd say only one person here would do Thanksgiving American style. Well, I talked to Garth. Canada has us by about 4 weeks. So he said he had a great Thanksgiving up north. And Peter, you're up early, so we're going to ask you to start us off, and that way if you get sick of being here or just need to get back to bed, you can. What we do first is a 30-second pitch, as if you were at a comic convention and someone was going past your booth. How would you entice someone to look at your project?
Okay, so I've not done many of these, and I have not even done many cons either. Well, in fact, I've done one. And didn't really work out a really slick pitch. So if I stumble through this, then forgive me a bit. But I had just finished a long project for me, my first comic project, which was called Ren, which was an alternate history effort, which was great fun, really, really great fun. I only started that a couple of years ago to really as an intellectual exercise to myself, because I've always been a comic reader. And just wanted to see if I could write myself a 28-page story, and had literally never even heard of Kickstarter before Christmas 2020, when someone said, what are you going to do with it now you've written it? So now I've done 4 installments of that and was hooked and was looking for the next project. So I was thinking about doing something very, very different. I was thinking about how the space program has restarted, trying to get ideas from anywhere, and billionaires in space. And my mind drifted to all the wonderful movies that we've got at the moment, and wonderful interpretations of sort of the point at which space exploration becomes colonization and exploitation. So a young universe, a young colonization universe, and thought about those stories. I couldn't really think of a new story in that genre that hadn't really been done before. I love things like The Martian. I love things like the Alien Saga, all about sort of exploration, the way grimy corporations get involved in it. Wanted to do something different. And then an idea struck me that as we are reaching out, as we are boldly going, which I nearly wrote in a Tracy something, what else might be coming with us? And I thought about things like the fly, the way the fly merges two things together, and you've got sort of an unwelcome passenger on. And I broadened that a little bit further. I'd never told a sort of any kind of supernatural story before. But then I thought, well, what else could be trying to hitch a ride on that rocket? And I got the idea of a vampire.
Oh,
so beautiful. Then you've got a grimy mining colony orbiting Saturn, and you've got a vampire running around those dark streets. That's the basics of it.
All right, that is awesome.
A little bit further in there.
Yeah, we're going to hold you right there. We're going to get a 30-second thing on the others, and then we are going to get there because what people who watch might have heard. I'm all in on Dark Shadows on Tubi. I'm watching that with my wife and my daughter. Every day we watch 1 or 2 episodes. So you had me with Vampire. I am in. But Garth, let's get to you and 30-second pitch on Skinned.
So like Peter, I'm not accustomed to doing the pitches, but I'm Skinned. It's like my love letter to horror movies. So the first one, I wish I had Skinned here, but like, so first one, Witch Creek Road, was like the cabin in the woods, sort of survival horror. Mm-hmm. Skinned is more of the supernatural, like serial killer, but more so about the 2 sisters who kind of like survive an encounter, and then both of them slowly start going mad, but in different ways. So yeah.
All right. If we had commercials, I'd run and grab my issue 1 because I have read it. I did love it, but we're going to get into that a little bit more. Charles, if somebody was walking past your booth at a comic convention, how would you get them into your to stop and take a closer look?
So We Promised Utopia is a detective story comic created by an energy engineer and a geophysicist about a woman who creates this idea, and that idea over the course of thousands of years becomes a utopia, balancing technology and environmental needs in the economy. And then thousands of years after that, everything has fallen apart. So the story is linking the 3 eras of why this idea worked, by why it ultimately failed.
Oh, all right, sweet. All right, so Peter, I'm going to pull up the page and let's look at Pioneer's Blood and Star. Sorry. So you said this is this a 28 page, or was it 4 installments of 28 pages?
This is going to be 5 installments of
Gotcha.
Of 28 pages. My first effort, the historical one, that was 4.
Okay.
So I'm going just a tiny bit further. Yay, got a new backer.
Oh, I love that robot.
That explain yourself bump is already hitting you. I warned you we take credit, and we really, really do. So, you have this idea for the comic. How did you bring your team together?
Well, it's a very small team. I have worked. I do everything myself, with the exception of colouring. My colour, I have absolutely no eye for colour at all. I think my lines are quite good, so I write myself. I kind of regard myself as a drawer who writes. My first love is sketching and drawing, so that's why I say it was really an exercise for me to see if I could actually put a sequential story together. I've had a bit of help with writing. Someone you guys might know, George O'Connor, has helped me a little with the writing. He's been great to sort of bounce ideas off.
Is that he
and
did
sort of
Toddler
a script review?
Toddler Apocalypse?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And really, really nice guy. Was so helpful to me just to make sure that this story, being so different, could be told in a way that makes sense and is fun and exciting, and maybe just a little bit different. We're all searching for a little bit different, right? While I was working on Ren, my previous story, I came across an artist called Falk Hansel, and there's a little bit of his work a little further down the page when we get there, but I didn't realize that he did coloring as well. I thought he was just an artist in his own right, and he did a cover for me for the previous series, and I had a few bumps in the road with a colorist for this one. Couldn't find anyone who I thought the style and the sci-fi kind of vibe of it was really hitting with, and Falk pinged me and said, what are you doing at the moment? I said, I've got this thing. I'm trying to find a colorist. And he said, I'll do it for you. Didn't even realize that he did that. And he jumped on board, and he's been amazing. Not just because, look at it. It looks like a freaking photo. It's incredible. It's hard to even believe my lines are even under there.
I actually stopped on this to mess with you for saying that you think your lines are okay. I mean, you drew that.
Your facial expressions are so fantastic.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, the shot little bit further down where you split her face in two to get that reaction from one statement to the other. That
right there.
That is really nice.
Oh, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a word for that? I've called them time slice panels, and I found I've drawn 7 or 8 of them in the book, not really knowing if it's a thing, but I'm really enjoying those. I've got a couple where woman wakes up out of bed, she's asleep, she's awake, getting up after a fall.
I think they call them the P. Taylor.
Yay, I like it. I don't like it. I'll stick with time slices.
But yeah, it's really
Taylor effect. It's the Taylor effect.
Yes, that is beautiful.
Isn't it lovely?
That's amazing. And I hate you immediately. Like multi-talented people like drawing and art is just like,
Thank you. That's really kind. So that's the team. I will give George. George hasn't asked for one, but I will give him an editor credit because he sort of looked at everything I've done and said, tweak that, and this is okay. He's really, really, really positive about it. And the rest is really, Falcon myself, and he's helped me far more than just the art. He's great to bounce ideas off, and does this work in a panel, or would this make a good cover, and that kind of thing. Brought in a few artists for some alternate covers. I love putting other people's art in the books because I'm sure if any of you, for any of you who really enjoy the art yourselves, you do get a bit bored looking at your own stuff all the time. So I think it breaks the books up nicely to be able to do something different and share something different with people and give people a choice of covers. Not too crazy. I'm not after the, particularly after the sort of collector market. Don't think everyone should have to, worry about buying every cover or anything like that. But it just does something different for the campaign.
See, if you draw like Will and I draw, you never get bored because it's always disgusting.
Mm-hmm. And you never know what it is when you go back to look at it. What the hell was I thinking? I don't know what that is.
I got sketch pages like that.
So which artist did your variants that you said? I think I saw 2 variants on it. Who did those?
There's going to be a third. Well, what we've done here is, again, placing artists on this one has not been easy. So the first cover, just pulling them up myself, the first cover of the 3 guys on the sort of planet's surface, that was myself and Falk. The cover of the robot slumped in, or the Lilu is and my main character's name, slumped in her apartment with the robot sitting in front of her. That's myself and a colorist called Brian Magnay. And for a third cover, just for a bit of fun, I think if you find, let me just see where it says, under Physical 3, reward tier Physical 3, I'm doing I've got 3 cover options by myself. And then 1, I've got a guest artist coming in that I haven't released yet.
Oh, okay. It could be us. We're crossing our fingers.
There's someone who's working on a 4th cover, and I'm not 100% sure they're going to have time to fit me in before the campaign finishes. So I won't say who it is, but a very talented lady who lives in Japan. So something, again, I'll say of a sort of an anime kind of style, just to be something completely different to what you're getting on the with my own work. But I love the idea of just bringing in guests if they've got time and kind enough to do something. It just makes it more fun.
And if you're going to do a variant anyway, it's like getting an artist that looks nothing like anything else in the comic. I mean, why wouldn't you do it?
Exactly.
Right, that's very smart.
Makes it more special.
Yep.
When I was going through this rune, I was very interested. So how does an artist design a robot like that? Because it doesn't feel like I've seen that particular robot anywhere before. So is it based on what your needs for the story? Is it based on the personality you want for it? Or is it just like, oh, I think that this is a cool head and I think these are cool shoulders, and you just crazy make them ups. How do you do that?
It's kind of crazy make them ups. Again, for me, I think about I don't do a whole lot of written work on world building, but when you start thinking about the period in history, because I love sort of far future work where everything's very rounded and beautiful, you know, and the spaceships look like things that, you know, Chris Voss designed and that kind of thing. But my story is set in a future that's probably 100 to 150 years away. And my mind goes, okay, so this is functional stuff. We're past the point that Apple wants to sell you a robot, you know, and it's going to look really sort of shiny and cool. And we're into something that's sort of grossly functional and just does the job we use it for. The particular robot that we've got, he's not a war robot or anything. He's actually a barista in a coffee store. We have a coffee chain over here called Costa, so I couldn't think of a better name, so I'm calling him Costa.
With a K instead of a C, or vice versa, depending on what won't get
I'm
you
spelling
sued.
it instead of an A at the end, an ER.
Very smart.
Okay.
Very smart.
Litigation, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, what was it? A coffee and bean, or what's the one that you've got over there? Oh,
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Starbucks is the 50-foot tall woman tearing up, so that's probably the
Yeah,
one.
no,
But
we
we
have,
got a couple, but
we have
but-
Starbucks here. I think
yeah.
that's been done in sci-fi. Calling your
Yeah.
character Starbuck, yeah.
Maybe.
yeah, it was my childhood. That's right, Apollo and Starbuck. That's right.
So yeah, so that's and so that's the design part. It's just, you know, where do I see them, and what do I and something that's not too complicated to sketch a lot of times
Over and over.
in the
right.
same, and not looking too different panel to panel, which is something I struggle with.
No, I mean, I don't think you do from the pages I saw, but you did edit the page. You could have only put your good stuff. So
True.
I'll decide when I've read the comic. But is this book appropriate for all ages? Is there a certain, like if you would give it a G, PG, R-rated, what would you rate this book in case somebody was looking for a family member?
This is a very difficult question, because again, so I'm going to say R, because I'm an old person and I don't like the idea of my grandchildren reading swear words.
Right.
So at the moment, the script does have a few Fs in it, which I may take out if I feel that the audience, you know, really wants that. Language is something that I think is malleable, and I think if you decide to go for a younger audience, particularly, you can change things without harming the content of the story for me. But at the moment, they're in the script, and that would be enough to R it for me. But it's not going to be massive amounts of gore or anything too visceral. For me, it's a story of. I'm calling it a story of unlikely friendships. Yeah, so the spoiler that I'll give you, because it doesn't say it in the pages of the Kickstarter, but as it's 4 a.m. here and my mind is a little addled, I talk about facing the universe's greatest evil, and the point of the book is that that's not actually going to turn out to be the vampire.
Okay.
Yeah, people are the universe's greatest evil, which I think is kind of an expression of how I and probably a fair few other people feel at the moment.
So you conceived of this during the pandemic, I see.
Yes, yes.
I think that
It's kind of the cloud over everything we create now.
It does, right? You're a product of your environment.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
I think that the question of whether or not to add F-bombs into a comic is a really interesting one, because we talk about it a lot on our side too, because the English language is malleable and it's also vast. So there's
Mhm.
often really interesting ways to put the same thing with the same kind of impact and not have that little flag in your comic that does, that does limit it.
Right.
And certainly I'm like not above, putting harsh language in, things clearly if you've read me, but I do think it's an interesting conversation that we often have with our writers where it's like, a 14-year-old could read this and enjoy it, but if their parent sees that word in there, it's a non-starter. So how bad do you want that word?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you can do things like if you look at Farscape or even
That's an F word already.
yeah, exactly. Or even the reboot of Battlestar Galactica. They used replacement words,
Right.
instead of the F-bomb or anything like that. So I mean, I
Yeah.
think you could argue about the visceral impact of that word on the reader,
Yeah.
whether it's made up or whether it's the actual thing. But
Mhm.
there are definitely ways around it.
Yeah,
I would agree.
you're writing it as a verbal crutch or because it actually
Right.
needs to be there.
Mhm.
I'm thinking of NYPD Blue. The reason they, first episode showed Dennis Franz's naked butt was to push away viewers that weren't going to like what NYPD Blue was going to be. Like they literally just
Yeah.
showed his butt so that those that would be squeamish of it weren't there later when they got to the harder stories. If you want
Mhm.
to tell a harder story, it might not be the worst thing to have a signpost saying, if you're not ready for this, you aren't ready for blank, blank, or blank. But that is definitely something a creator and a store should be thinking about is it worth it? My book, it goes to some dark, dark places. And yeah, sometimes the characters say that word. But at conventions, if someone comes up that looks in that 13 to 15 range, I don't push it on them like somebody 18, like 16, 17, 18 or over. But there was one time where 3 teenage girls came up and there was a mom with them. And I said to the mom, this is hard PG, soft R. I don't know. She goes, they're on Tumblr. And this was back when Tumblr was like the wild
Right.
west. I said, okay, well, it's fine. And I threw the books at them because I was like, they've seen some shit on Tumblr that I am not touching in this book. But it is an interesting choice what you want to do with the language, and I think it's something to think about as a creator.
Definitely, I'm against censorship, as I'm sure a lot of us would be. It's very important that we as writers and creatives are allowed to put anything out there we choose. But actually, I wouldn't mind more guidance in that space in comics of saying, like they do in films, not necessarily a board to review it, but if it's got more than 3 F-bombs in it, then it should be this. I wouldn't mind that as guidance, particularly as you say, Charles, you've got a team to sit and discuss it. I'm making the choices, at the moment, kind of by myself, and I don't trust my own judgment for anything. So
one story, I was trying to figure out if we should put mature readers on our book when we started way back. And I think it was Saga 4 or 6 came out where they were on the sex planet.
Yeah.
And, you had monsters running at you with dildos in their hand. And they didn't have mature on their cover. And I was like, well, I don't think we need it. At one point, I thought we maybe did. I don't think we need it. So
when we put out Blackjack Demon, it was the first comic. This was a year and a half ago. It was the first comic that went into distribution, like full distribution through Diamond. And we were like, well, there's a monster and there's a little bit of gore, but not much. But let's put mature on it. And then whenever Diamond released it, they had it as adult. And we're like, oh my.
No, that's a big difference.
That's incorrect. And then, yeah.
It's unfair because you want people to do something for mature readers. Yeah. And you want people to be able to do like Peter said, like if you want to do an adult book, you should do an adult book, but there definitely should be adult mature readers all ages or
Mhm.
what YA 14 or whatever.
Yeah,
And
like a more like a grade level kind of thing. Like this is college and up. This is
Mhm.
high school and up. Yeah, but there's really no perfect way, but yeah,
Now
sometimes.
Space Between has said it, no censorship ever, so it's done. We're good. He is censoring anybody who would censor, and I guess
Was that
we'll take
Pat?
it.
Hi, Pat. That's Pat. Hi, Pat.
Yeah, I'm fully on board with creators being able to make their own choices and
Mhm.
whatever those choices are. Pat knows how to write a mature adult book that isn't pandering also. So pretty nice to have somebody who has a foot in the cheeky and thirsty areas of comics and a foot in also telling a story. So that's a pretty great thing that some people could learn from. But if you
All
just
about
want to
the
write, if you just
About
want to
the
write a
audience.
TNA book, that's fine too. Yeah, there's an audience.
All needs to exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, Peter, that is awesome. I cannot wait to read about this. But let's stick in sci-fi. I'll pull down We Promised Utopia. So how did the team, what was the first, glimmer in the creator's eye on We Promised Utopia?
So Adrian, who was going to be here, but he got stuck on his way home, so he missed out. Adrian Morales and Robert Holman are the scientists that I mentioned, and they were on a long road trip talking about climate change, energy. That's what they do for a living, so they're really invested in thinking about the impacts that's going to have on the future. And they started thinking about how to explain the costs of fossil fuels in a way that would make a little bit more sense, and energy usage. So like this reality show was kind of the first thought, but it was a long road trip. So they just kept rabbit holing. And then finally they came up with this idea of this utopia that actually comes to be, that started as like a political movement reality show in our present time. But over time, that idea just keeps growing and growing and growing until like it becomes a thing. Yeah, cost per issue. Yeah, there's Adrian built this, so it's very data driven.
For scientists by scientists.
Yeah. And he came to an artist who is actually across the street from our bookstore, who is a fantastic artist. We'd worked in with them in the past, and he came in. Adrian told him the idea, and he was like, "Do you want to do the art for it?" And the artist was like, "No, but go over and talk." And so he came over to me and told me the idea, and I was like, "I love it. So tell me about the characters." And he's like, "Oh, there's no characters. That's what you're for." I was like, "Okay, all right." So they have this vast, beautifully rendered world with like nobody living in it. So like I got to populate it. And then we got 3 different artists that come in and do the 3 different timelines. So the statue there is of Isabel Bari. She's the charismatic leader who has this idea for revamping the global economy to be carbon based. And so she is the only character that appears in all 3 timelines because she became like this mythic figure who had saved humanity from itself. And each issue has its own white paper that explains some of the science behind it. But whenever we started writing it, we wanted it to be character focused, and we wanted it to be, fast paced, because this is dense, hard sci-fi. So we wanted it to be entertaining first and foremost, and everything after. So that right there is the father of the family. They're in the survivor, the final era, where they're just trying to survive. Everything's falling apart, but they still have these remnants of the technology, so that spear is taken from, what's left over from the utopia. So each era is kind of its own genre as well. So it's just, it's a really, really hard comic to make. But it's also very satisfying. We have 7 people involved, which is the biggest crew we've ever had on any comic we've ever done. And then you have these 2 scientists that are like, we will shut down production because there is a campfire in this frame, and there's no wood in an ice age. So where is this campfire from? And we're like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. We spent like 2 weeks arguing about how to draw a tree. Like the space elevator was this crazy thing. But the great thing about that is like everything, like this is peer reviewed. Like they send it out to their colleagues and are like, does this make sense to you? And if it doesn't, we redraw. And this is not the way to make a comic, by the way.
No.
But it's also satisfying because we get to like have this beautiful comic that, you know, it has like that Asimov hard science fiction vibe to it. And like there's nothing else. There's just nothing else out there like it. And I don't say that because I wrote it. I say it just because like I know what goes into it. And especially publishers, our tiny publishers of our size, like this is way above our weight class. Mm-hmm. And we're really proud of Alien Engaged and Res Detectives and all the other things that we do. And those have done really well, but just like the production that goes into this is just so far beyond what we do with our other comics. And that's the reason we did this big, ambitious Kickstarter, because we have to front load so much work on it for season 2, right, that we want to just be able to be like, okay, everybody, your pay is secured. It's there. Just get to work. And let's get the comic out by the fall.
Right. So when we back this, are we backing to get, how many comics are we getting, or is there a catch up here?
4 comics already out. That's season 1, which is the trade. The next season is going to be 5 through 9. And then there'll be a 3rd season to wrap up the series. And everything's already scripted. It's just a matter of just getting the art done. And we have Jonathan Kelch, Chloe Elamon, and John Eric Osborne doing the 3 different ages. And each one of them, like Chloe Elamon, has almost this Disney kind of style to her. And she's doing the dystopian future. So we have this like ice apocalypse that's happening. But in the middle of it is this family with these, you know, really emotional faces to give some softness to this really hard age. And then Jonathan Kelch, like his utopian cityscapes are just absolutely bonkers. Like one page is like a terabyte. That's how much work goes into them. And then John Eric Osborne is the art director of the whole project, and he's the one who does the present. He loves drawing robots and, you know, crazy stuff, but we're like, hey, can you just draw a lot of people talking? So like you're gonna do like the West Wing era, and I put him there because he does a really good job with like subtle nuance of emotion. So as you're having that kind of 2-shot thing, like a Tom King, you know, back and forth, like he has the ability to make that conversation both realistic, but also emotive enough that you could not even read the dialogue and see what's happening just from their expressions. So yeah, it's like a weird dream team that we've got really lucked into.
Awesome. So when I back this and I got to pick up the trade paperback, do I do that as an add-on? Because I'm in. You sold me. So I'm going to back for 5 through 9 and get a trade paperback, because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and my favorite thing in the whole Kickstarter, the thing that like makes me laugh every time I think about it, especially since we've already had one person back it, is the Debate the Science report, where you get 30 minutes to take Adrian and Robert to task. And I am so excited about this. I like, please, crazy people, find us. It's like, after this, like, let's record it. Let's get weird.
So you're just getting money off of flat earthers, just right, left, and center, huh?
I hope so. And Adrian, and the thing about Adrian and Robert, they're really nice guys. They're actually like, I know, like, you know, arguing over how to draw trees and stuff sounds like really frustrating, but it's not, because they're really great collaborators and they just really want you to understand. They're like really good teachers. So they're very patient, and they're very like, they want to hear your ideas, but they're also going to kind of like, oh yeah. But here's all the actual information without being like, you know, rude about it. And so like the idea of these 2 really just nice guys who really have this deep knowledge of what they're talking about, having to like contend with
normies.
Yeah. It just makes me so happy. It just makes me so happy.
Oh no, that's a really cool thing. You got to get you with the Onishi Press people, because they basically plant a tree for every backer that they get in a Kickstarter campaign. So we gotta get you to the Onishi Press people, because obviously you're pushing the same direction in very different ways, but they're definitely pretty cool in the environmental landscape of how they do things.
And that's one of the interesting things about this comic is, even with like Adrian and Robert, as much work as they put into it, like we're not saying these are the answers, like where they're like, these are some ways that can happen, but the real heart of it is that what saves humanity is not how we redevelop the economy. It's not the technology that comes out. It is a movement that is able to build awareness to like the looming disasters coming, to the point like humanity forces the change on the world. Like this is something that can happen. We just got to get together to do this huge thing. And then here is, this possible outcome of it that's beautiful and everybody gets to eat. But if we take our eye off the ball, then like this is the disaster that's ahead of us. So yeah. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
No, it's a really great fantasy that the people will come together and do the right thing, and then a great projection of what will happen, where we're all freezing our fucking asses off because nobody can do a goddamn thing. But I like that you gave multiple possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a little cynical about the human race right now. But I really I applaud you, and I think that it's a really cool thought, and I'm in. One thing real quick, I didn't see this comment when we were talking about the mature readers. Shawnee said, I find it interesting how many people view mature and adult as synonymous, while I see them as meaning fairly different things. Perspective can be interesting, especially when dealing with the general public.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I would love to think that Sandman is mature readers and Zombie Tramp is adult, and that's not, Sandman's my favorite book ever, so it's a huge compliment to Sandman. I don't mean it as an insult to Zombie Tramp, but those are two very different books for sometimes the same readers and often very different readers. And mature readers is, to me, your sagas, your everything that Brian K. Vaughan does. Yeah. And the adult is something else, and Pat does a book that's adult and mature readers, and I think that's a great thing to do. Cynical Kevin is my fave. Yeah, it's late and my defenses are down. So, but speaking of defenses down, I think we better get to our horror thing. Garth, I'm going to pull up Skinned. Once again, I read issue 1, and you scared the ever-loving crap out of me. And I've said it to you before, I think that comedy and horror are the two hardest things to do in comics. And I think that 20% of comedy books and 20% of horror books are funny or scary, and your books are always legitimately chilling. So hats off to you on Skinned for making it happen, and I will pull it up. In case people missed the first part of the show or haven't read Skinned, as I pull it up, how did you come up with the idea for this installment of your horror universe?
Like, in terms of Skinned, I would describe it kind of as like my cursed project, because I went through probably 3 or 4 different artists before I had Keenan do it. And like, originally we were doing Witch Creek Road, and Witch Creek Road was the side project because I was trying to do Skinned, and it just fell through so many times that we shifted into Witch Creek Road. And then once we finished season 1 of Witch Creek Road, I just had Keenan do Skinned, which was like season 2. The thing with Skinned is that you don't need to have read Witch Creek Road to read Skinned. Like, they're completely standalone. In the Webtoons version, they did have us include some season 1 characters just to give the readers like a familiar starting point.
Right.
But in this version, we kind of take them away and present it how it was intended. And yeah, it's that's Keenan's line work. He's amazing. I love his art. The comic is black and white, some spot color. And yeah, I will continue working with Keenan for as long as he'll continue working with me.
Well, yeah, if somebody can turn in that page, you keep working with them, right?
Yeah.
I think
That is
spot
just
color
freaky.
is such an underutilized tool. Like, hardly anybody does spot color, but man, it's always so fantastic.
It's such a business decision, stopping a lot of people from doing a very cool artistic decision, because it's so rough to be like, if I make a black and white comic and I print it, it's this amount per page. But if I do spot color or color, it's this amount. It's kind of like, But yeah, when done right, it is so gorgeous. This, of course, Sin City, and so many other things have done it. It is incredible.
I love that panel there because it looks like she's consuming him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love his art.
I was just scrolling through the page here, and my eyes popped out of my head when I saw that image. That is a gorgeous and horrifying image. That's beautiful.
Every time I get a new page from Keenan, it's like Christmas morning. I just can't wait to open it and look at it. So one of the reasons why we're kind of doing it this way is on Webtoons, like we were featured, so we had to do some changes. Like, we had to make some changes. So this is kind of like going back and reformatting it to how we wanted it.
Sort of a director's cut type of a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
How does that happen with Webtoons? Do they come to you and say, we think it would be better if you have some of your characters here? Or do they say, if you want to be featured, you better do this? Or if you want to tell us that. If you don't, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just interested.
I don't know. I feel like if I had pushed, I probably could have convinced them not to. But it was one of those things where it's like, I understand from a business standpoint that you've got some very popular characters from season 1. It's like, why wouldn't you put them in season 2? Right. So I got it. And a couple of my favorite scenes from season 2 involved those characters. So I'm kind of sad to remove them.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, eventually we'll probably do like a Webtoons season 2 version, but for right now, we're just trying to present it how it was intended so that we can move forward. By the time we got to season 4, things had changed a little bit because of the stuff that happened here.
It could be confusing too, because the inspirations kind of come from different horror. Different horror kind of feed into the 2 stories. It can be confusing if they're too close to each other, as opposed to kind of like what whatchamacallit tried to do with Halloween 3 is, I'm sick of telling Michael Myers stories. I'll just tell a different scary story over a year and call it Halloween. And the audience said, nope, you won't do that. But he had a great idea. So I kind of like that you can kind of have, Witch Creek is more of a, like, hey, here's an umbrella of scary is coming, and you'll find out what when you read it.
Yeah, they were intended as kind of like standalone stories that would eventually come together. Okay. So this was like the first of the kind of spiritual sequels to Witch Creek. But yeah, it's a small team. Me, Keenan, and then Anna does the colors for the covers. So it's really just like the 3 of us.
Do you have to do any adaptation from what you present on Webtoons to get it into a traditional comic book form, or so we've never put our comics on Webtoons before.
Yeah, we did the opposite. So like Keenan did all of his work as sequential artwork, and then I would cut it up into kind of like the vertical scroll.
Yeah.
And do it that way. And I found that was probably far easier than trying to do the opposite, because trying to do the opposite would have been really, really hard to get those like panels into a proper page.
We did. So we're on. We had a comic do really well on Comixology until they changed the subscription model, and we're also on Global Comics. Global Comics is actually really fantastic. We really like them, but sales are really, really tough. So, like, do you suggest going to Webtoons?
Yeah, like when I first went to Webtoons, I knew nothing about it. Just my first comic that I had printed like traditionally through an indie publisher, no one bought it because no one knew who I was. And so when we did Witch Creek Road, I was like, I just want to get this out to as many people as I can. And so we did Kickstarter, and then after Kickstarter, we put that issue up onto Webtoons. And the idea was to like keep doing that, like Kickstarter and then Webtoons, Kickstarter, Webtoons. But then they came to us and said, hey, do you want to be featured? And featured is an amazing opportunity because they do a lot more promotion for you, put it in front of people, they pay you. So it's a really, really good
What's that like?
So you guys are getting paid?
Getting paid, yeah.
And it's awesome, like it, because as a writer, like I've got to commission all the artwork and stuff, so Webtoons saved me. Like I was gonna stop after season 1 of Witch Creek Road because I couldn't afford to do it.
Yeah.
And Webtoons basically put money back into my bank so I could continue doing it.
Will and I are in the same boat, but we didn't stop at 5 issues. We stopped at like 30. So we just got to drown longer.
Tread water. We got to tread water longer.
Oh yeah. No, that's the way we're supposed to say it. You're right.
Yeah.
And there's just simply no easy way to do it. There's just no easy way to do a comic because the margins are so tiny. We actually, like, to keep our publishing company alive, we had to buy a production printer just so we could do our own printing because we couldn't print at the volumes that even when we were doing like 3,000 for an issue, like even offsetting, we were still losing money on anything we distributed. So like, we were like, okay, do we just stop publishing or do we print our own stuff? And that's what we ended up having to do. So it's a tough racket.
And has that worked out for you? Do you feel like it's kept you afloat in that way?
Yeah. It's the only thing that kept us going. The Kickstarters, of course, are, a godsend, but that only covers the art. Hopefully it covers the art. But like the printing, we're able to print, a proof, like right when we need it, make a change, print another proof. And then if our distributor wants, 304 comics, we print 304 comics and send it to them. And if the bookshop, because the bookshop is this way all around me, and then the printer's in that direction.
Let's get some advertisement out there. What is the name of the bookshop? And can people follow you on the socials?
Oh yeah, it's at Literati Press on all of the things. The bookshop, so our publisher is also Literati Press. So we started as a publisher. We opened the bookstore later because we just had an opportunity to have a space in an old public swimming pool. And we're like, cool. Yeah, please. And then the print shop came later, which really, it's a print shop that just focuses mostly on comics and novels. We will do some outsourced stuff too, but the majority of everything we print is our own stuff. And it is not an easy road. So like, if you're a small publisher and you're like, man, that sounds good, print my own comics, really consider it before you do it. Because it is, it's a lot of work.
I know another company that has made some mistakes recently, did the thing of building their own printer. So I'm not going to give them free advertising, but I do think it's a pretty, if you have the ability and the resources to do it, I think it's a nice, I don't want to say I think it's a high ceiling gamble. I don't know what the floor is though on that, but I think if you have the ability to do it, I think it's a very smart. Now, a single, I wouldn't do it. Peter shouldn't do it. Garth shouldn't do it. But if you really think you're going to be doing blank amount of books a year, I think it's super smart to give it a try.
Yeah, and that was kind of what the math was for us. I mean, we're not like IPG or some massive, company that can, just like, yeah, sure, we'll bring in an inkjet and do the thing. We were just like, I mean, that was exactly what we did. We're like, okay, hopefully if we continue publishing, we know we're going to have X amount of comics coming out a month. We believe we can bring X amount of other print jobs in to supplement the income, just to pay for the printer and the labor.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can just hit that, then, it'll mean that we can continue printing comics at, sub $2 a comic, regardless of the volume.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a gamble. Like, it is a big, big gamble. And we don't have investors. We don't have financial backing. It was just a decision. Do we want to keep publishing, or do we want to fold? And yes, we want to continue publishing. Hell with it. Let's throw everything in and just see how it plays out. And so far we just celebrated a year of doing all of our own production, and so we're still here. We're still fighting.
That's cool. I love that.
That's
Nice.
Congratulations on the year.
Yeah, thank you.
That's really awesome.
We just had a bindery screw up an entire load of trades. So today was a hard day to be a printer, but it's all right.
Yeah, and one of our, friend of the show, Mario Candelaria, his book Kilcella was coming out from Scout, and it was coming out, on a Wednesday in 3 weeks, and the printer that they use is in Fort Myers, and Hurricane Ian basically destroyed every single issue of the first printing. It just drowned it. And it's just like, I felt so bad for him, because it's your dream to have your first comic distributed in comic shops around the world.
Yeah.
And this freak event happens, and it's like, short term, it's terrible, but 10 years from now, he's going to be able to tell this really funny story. Now, 5 years from now, it'll probably still be terrible, but I think in a decade, he's going to be able to do, my first comic was swept out to sea by Hurricane Ian, and 3 weeks later, I was finally in shops. But it's amazing what can happen to our books here, there, and everywhere. So I'm certainly sorry about your bindery story, but hopefully in a couple years, it's a funny story to tell.
Yeah, what's the old equation? A tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yeah. We all decide how long it is, but
yeah, we just, the thing is, like, every time something goes wrong, you're just like, well, we learned something new today. Like, can we stop learning?
Yeah. That's a really good point. Geek Collective says knowing your market and what you're capable of is major in making tough decisions. Yeah, I think it's really cool. I'd never thought of that. It's a really cool thing to hear. So thank you for kind of letting us behind the curtain a little bit. Well, gentlemen, let's do one more round of kind of the pitches in case somebody came in. And Peter, I'm going to let you go back to sleep because you have been a trooper. I'm going to say Vampire in Space, but you can go a little bit deeper. Give us Pioneers, Blood and Stars, just a little bit deeper than a Vampire in Space.
I was going to go with Vampires in Space. Who doesn't want to read a book? I mean, if you're going to get into comics, okay, alternate history using real life characters from the 17th century England is one thing, but you get into it for Vampires in Space.
Absolutely.
I'm going to leave it there. I can't do it better than that.
Done. All right, so we got you a 7-second pitch now. I'm gonna throw a haymaker, Garth. Let's do Skinned next.
I'm gonna cede my time, and I'm gonna say we promised Utopia
see my time.
Well, all right. I'm going to do this. Okay. I'm going to do it for Garth because Garth writes the spookiest horror comics that I have read. He actually scares me when I read his horror comics. And it's both the story, the what happens to his characters that you have grown to love in 3 pages, and on the 4th page, they are not always treated so nicely. Let's just say that his final girls, who are super chaste and turn down the marijuana, don't always end up in the sequel. And I think you should read Skinned, but I also think that if you haven't read the original, grab that hardcover because it's gorgeous. Okay, now let's see the time to We Promised Utopia.
I'm just going to mention, so We Promised Utopia, issues 1, 2, 3, and 4. The physical copy is $12.
Wow.
It's like $3 per issue. So if you're watching, like, first of all, Charles, you're charging too little. But like $12 for 4 copies, like for issues 1 through 4. Most people charge more than that for a single issue.
Yeah.
So like, why not?
Yeah, not everybody has their own printer.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we didn't need to know that, you know, like
we charge. So the real reason is so before we got the printer, so issues 1 and 2 came out before we had the printer, and we were trying to hit margin, and that was whenever the paper was exploding and just getting ridiculous. So like our cover price is $5, and whenever in the course of 4 months the cost of printing a 32-page comic went up so much that we were losing money unless we printed way more than we needed. And we're like, we just hope that we can sell through these. And so when we got our printer, we still have all these comics. So we're like, well, we'll just slash it and sell through our stock and be able to sell it for like $12, and no big deal because So yeah, I would normally agree with it, but it's like let's get you in the door, and then we'll come back around with the $5 comics, and we'll make it back.
It's just $2 more than the digital. I mean, like, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free up some space in our closet.
All right. So we know it's affordable. Let's remind everybody what it is.
So We Promised Utopia is a detective story set in 3 different eras of mankind. Present, where a woman is fighting to establish this idea for merging environmental needs with the economy and technology to establish a new global economy. Bent on trying to save humanity from climate change. And then the second is into the future, where that global economy, that idea worked, and we have this perfect marriage between human civilization and the environment. Everything is working, but there is something that's amiss. And then into the far, far future, everything is collapsed. It's an ice age. A family is among the last of the humans left on the planet. We're at near extinction, and it's about them going back through the wreckage of this utopia, discovering the secret that started in the present day that is still haunting humanity thousands of years into the future.
All right.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, really appreciate it. Will and I are going to talk about some of the campaigns that are still running. You can hang with us if you'd like. You can go back to sleep, or close up shop and start driving home. We really appreciate it. Great to meet you too, and Garth, always great to get to talk to you again, buddy. So Will, I don't even know what's still alive. What do we got?
Everything. This past week, I mean, everything, I got to do some shout outs to some really good projects. America's Kingdom, that one closed out. Holiday Spirits by, our buddy Travis Gibb. That one closed out. So congrats to them. Home Free, who we had on that one. Kane L. Gray, Fangs and Foul Play, Bixby Grant, Sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a bunch really make it in this past week. So
we do have a couple. No, go ahead.
Yeah, the only one that I was going to shout out was Meraki, number 7
Yeah.
by MK Palmer.
Which
And
is 100% funded. She hit
nice.
250 backers and is over $10,000 today. So she did it. I know that she had hoped to fund before she did a convention out in LA. I don't know if she was at the convention or not, but super happy for MK to get above her goal and hopefully get closer to 300 backers and a little more. Meraki or Meraki or however we say it is Greek gods, but basically shown as the jerks that they are, and the humans that have to deal with them at one point deciding nope, and it's kind of a sci-fi bend on it, but nope, and deciding let's kill all these gods with some very strong LGBTQ representation, and it's got gorgeous art. Buddy Mike Shea, Miskatonic High, issue 16, killing it. I really recommend this as a Buffy fan. I really like the kids stuck in a Lovecraftian world where all of the monsters attack them issue by issue. I think it's really a great book, and I recommend it highly. Killtopia has 21 hours left. It's issue 5. It is the final installment of Killtopia. Super strong sci-fi pop art. Just a very interesting book. If you haven't heard of it, do check out the page because it's worth it. And Destinations is an anthology by the people we mentioned, Onishi Press. They just do great work. I like all of their books. And as we said before, they will plant a tree, which costs them $1. You can back their campaign for $1. Kickstarter takes a dime. They get 90 cents. They'll still plant a tree in your honor. So you can actually stick them for a dime. I don't recommend that, but you can do it if you are feeling so inclined. But everybody, we really appreciate you popping in, and we got a shout out to Bixby. Yes, Bixby. That's a cool book. I can't wait to get it. So everybody, we really appreciate it. We said it'd be about an hour, and it's an hour and 4 minutes. I think we did about as good as we've ever done, Will.
Yeah. Our normal level of professionalism.
Yes. Geek Collective, I'm dying to know if you have all read any of the good books we've seen on the show. I've seen Skin. I've read Skin #1, definitely. New Rat City is one of my favorite books. I just read Nine Crow by is it Inky? What's her Twitter name? Inky Squids or something. Nine Crow, the hardcover, is one of the most beautiful books besides Witch Creek Road Volume 1 that I've gotten out of Kickstarter. Although I'll have to say Snowpaw is pretty darn gorgeous too. But Nine Crow, super amazing Twilight Zone type of detective story. They go on the reading pile, and eventually I'll get to them, but it could be next week or 5 years from now. So
exactly.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful night. We appreciate everybody in the chat and our creators, and we're just gonna
throw stuff around at the moment.
We're tearing this place apart. Will knows how to end this bitch.